Welcome once again to another edition of Quoth Lewis Brightraven. I'm your host, Lewis Brightraven, 29-year veteran writer, editor, and artist of comics, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and role-playing games. Today is October 25th, 2021. It's Booktober Day 25, and we're going to talk about an X-Men book. Collects X-Men 1 through 6 by Jonathan Hickman and various artists. We know Francis Yu, Jerry Allen Ian, a few others. So let's go ahead and get right to that. I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up, though. This is not going to be the most pretty review, but we'll do our best. This edition is $17.99, published by Marvel. Writer Jonathan Hickman, artist Lionel Francis Yu, R.B. Silva, Matteo Bufagni, and Jerry Allen Guillen. Colors by Sonny Go, Wayne Barreto, and Marte Garcia. Letters by Clayton Cowles. Genre is superhero action-adventure. This collection was released in 2020, originally released in 2019 in single issues. What it's about? Well, truthfully, I have no freaking idea. Apparently, this was a supplemental collection of stories to the main story of Hickman's running through the main X-Men titles. So it's a little bit weird. I guess the Summers have a secret base house on the moon. Maybe the Inhumans left it behind, where their clique group of family and friends stay. I was completely lost, even though it's supposed to be an explanatory book that explains all the goings on in the franchise, apparently. Or at least it's what I've read from other people's reviews. That's not a good thing. This is exactly why I think Hickman sucks in terms of relation to writing this particular franchise, and why the X books have been basically impenetrable for new readers for decades. At least when I left the titles, you could keep up with them. That was, however, 30 years ago. The art is typical modern comics art, nothing special, but nothing egregiously bad either. One of the reasons I didn't really care for this was Hickman does a lot of self-pandering in the book. There's a cookout dinner scene in issue 1 that is just so him talking about his own family get-togethers and superimposing it upon the characters. There's a scene where Chad of the Starjammers bumps into Jean Grey and he comments, "I made tea, but I believe it needs sugar." To which Jean replies, "Of course it does." "Well, yeah, if you're a Southerner born and bred like Hickman, who's from the Carolina region. Jean Grey is from Annandale-on-Hudson, New York City, New York, where they don't necessarily put sugar in their tea, jerk. Write your characters properly, damn it." If it had been Rogue bumping into Chad, then the dialogue is correct. But this is Alaskans, where the Summers family is from, and New Yorkers, Jean Grey family is from. So no, they don't care about sugar in their tea. Thank you very much. Now, you might perceive this as a nitpick, but I bring it up because it's an example of bad comics writing. You write who the characters are, not who you are through the characters. Too many of today's writers, like Hickman, write fanfic-level shit where they superimpose themselves into the stories. While this was just a minor example, it gets worse as the story progresses throughout. I'm not going to go on a huge rant, but there's like 5 or 6 different other examples that are even more annoying to me. Why was Hickman able to write Fantastic Four so well? And I gave him a good review on Fantastic Four earlier this month in Booktober. But he is completely dropping the ball with this. Well, because he wrote the Fantastic Four. I don't know what the this is, but it sure as hell isn't any damn X-Men I realize, I know and recognize. This book has a lot of lame-ass socio-political clique groups within clique groups of mutants who have supposedly put aside their differences while still arguing how to function as a nation on their little fantasy island of Krakoa, which is incredibly stupid, by the way, as they've come up with this ridiculous backstory in recent years that I'm not going to go into. But doing the research, boy, howdy did it give me a headache. Apparently, they've lost communication with the sensitive Hive Mind Island and have to go rescue the island and everybody else who's living on the island. Now, I'm aware that I'm outdated on my X-Men lore, but in my time, Krakoa used mutants as a food source. It wasn't exactly a good place for mutants to be living on. I also seem to remember him being shot into space and being part of the Stranger's Lab collection, Did they ever explain how the hell it got back to being in the Pacific Ocean? Bueller? Anyone? And Professor X gives up his dream of peaceful coexistence with humanity. Okay, so why not just move into the blue area of the moon and coexist with the Inhumans altogether? Why live on an island on the Earth? Oh, that's right. The Terrigen Mist supposedly afflict mutants with mpox if they're exposed to the mist too long. So you wouldn't want them around the Inhumans. So why do the Summers have a home on the moon again? Anybody? Bueller? Anyone? Aren't they just as threatened by the Inhumans, who pretty much don't like humans or mutants all that much, which is why they live on the moon themselves in the first place? Now you can see why I don't really enjoy Marvel Comics these days. They've become so convoluted and so intertwined with one another, and they contradict their own history to the point that there's just too many logic gaps, or you have to turn your mind off and run with everything, which is not how I like to read my comics. Now, to be fair, I don't want to just diss Marvel. I don't want to just diss Hickman or the X-Men. DC suffers a lot of similar problems, but this is hardly a surprise given how many of them are written by the same fan writers turned pro that both companies employ, often at the same time. So I struggled through this book, couldn't remotely get into the story, or I suppose I should say stories. I guess they're supposed to be one-shot tales that intertwine and give back info as to what's going on in the greater Hicks X-verse. Anyway, it wasn't for me at all. You guys demanded I read it, that I read it rather, so I've read it. I'm sorry, it just wasn't for me, and I don't see it really being for anybody but the slave hive mind X fan who just buys X wherever they see it. And I just haven't been that type of a reader for the X-Men since the 80s. So there you go. It's suitable for ages 14 up, but I can't recommend it. I'm sorry. I give it a rating of 2 out of 5 stars. Sorry that I'm being kind of harsh on this. Normally I don't do that, but it really was a downer after reading a really quality Fantastic Four series. I kind of had hopes, and it really just it crashed and burned. I'm sorry. So that is our Booktober review for today. Now, we do have tomorrow's book, that is Evermore Falls by Carl Slominski. That'll be tomorrow. Also, this week and later tonight, we will have crowdfunding and book reviews where I review a number of books. We're going to be reviewing This Land 1 through 3, Midnight Highway 1 and 2, Undercity Tales number 1, Hocus Hocus number 1, and Black Jackets 1 through 3, I believe. Yes, Black Jackets 1 through 3. And that'll be at 9:30 this evening. And then tomorrow we will have Evermore Falls by Carl Slominski for Booktober Day 26. And at 8 p.m. we'll have an interview with Grant Lankard and he'll talk about his Kickstarter program campaign for his book, Memoirs of the Morbid. Wednesday will be Booktober Day 27, which is a cool feature, Monsters by Barry Windsor Smith. Thursday, we'll have Book Day 28, Windhaven by George R.R. Martin, Lisa Tuttle, and Elsa Chartier. And we'll also have What Did You Get This Week later in the day, or later in the evening. Friday will be Booktober Day 29, Nevermore by Harold Schechter. Saturday will be Booktober Day 30, Retrograde by Peter Codron. Saturday night will be Classic Horror Movies Part 2. I'm not exactly sure which movies we'll be talking about just yet. I haven't figured it all out. And then Sunday, closing out the month, Booktober Day 31, Graveyard Wars by A.J. Lieberman and Andrew Sebastian Kwan. There will also be a live draw episode. And to close out the whole month, Classic Horror Movies Part 3. That is the week looking forward. So, I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll be back later tonight at 9:30 for the crowdfunding episode. Until then, If you like this episode, or you think others might, or you just want to share the channel, hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons to continue to get support from this channel. As always, I thank you for watching and for your support. If you want to reach out to me, I'm on social media at Facebook, Lewis.BrightRaven, at Twitter at LewisBrightRaven2. You can see my artwork at deviantart.com/BrightRaven. You've been watching Quoth the Raven, Lewis Brightraven, exclusively on YouTube. If you have questions, comments, you looked at my art on DeviantArt, you want to commission artwork, you have suggestions for future episodes of the show, Quoth the Raven, LBR72@gmail.com is the place to check me out. And if you don't reach back to you in like a day or so, try lewisbrightraven@yahoo.com. We will see you later tonight, next time. Have a good day.